Hi, today we're going to talk a bit about FRTB market risk and capital charges due to this new regulation that is due to go live in 21 or 22. And say that you have gone through the documentation, read through the 422 pages of the European regulator documentation, and you have also documented this in how the formulas should work in within a bank, and you've also read all the documentation online and all the discussions and taken part and also figured it's strange and weird, as said by many academics, in how to calculate this. Uh, but you have done it anyway, so you have now a calculation engine, and then we're going to look at what that might look like if you've done the job correctly. So you have a dashboard. So what we have to calculate the capital charge. Well, first of all, of course, you have your regular positions, the banking, the trading book. So we have your VAR calculated, but now you need to know what the capital charge will be on these positions. So we have the dashboard, and then we can see that we have both the internal model approach and you have the standard model approach as the fallback. And both approaches have three components. So you have the actual market risk charge, you have the non-modelable risk charge for the risk factors that do not belong to the modelable risk factors, and you also have the default risk charge within the internal model. And the same with the standard model, you have the prescribed model for the standard model, and you have the positions that are outside of this model, and you also have a standardized default risk charge. So say that we're assuming that our capital charge is calculated by the internal model, we can break it down on trading venues, and we can see how these stack up against each other, and how this could be optimized in which desks should be which type of model ideally. So we can then go through this a bit more in detail and try to understand where the risks are coming from. So we have then again a drill down on the positions, and you can see that we have the expected shortfall calculation according to the internal model. And here we can also further look at the PV samples that are coming from such a model, and we can drill it down actually to position level if you have a sufficiently tight book, and look at the positions. But you can also go into the standardized model and do the same thing and see where would the standardized model's risks come from. And we can see that we have the high, medium, and low set also from the model, and see that obviously the capital charge comes from the highest one. We can also break this down into modules and see from which of these standardized modules are we getting our risks from. So if we want to understand further where we're getting the gear delta of a 7 million, we need to go into the risk manager needs to do some analysis. We need to go into a detailed tool to analysis. So we would then proceed to our detailed view, and then we would end up in something like this. With these charges, we have our portfolio and we have our settings, and we also see all the desks calculated. And now we can break this down and see, okay, so we have the gear delta charge, the high, where does this come from? and we can highlight it, and we can see that we have all the summations that are done, the regulatory aggregation engine broken down here, so we can see where all this is coming from. And then we can switch to see where is the credit risk coming from, and we can see that we have different credit quality buckets in which these are placed, and we can see that the largest part here is coming from the 1 to 3 and the sector 4, and by highlighting it we can see also the correlations that are involved, and we can see also down on position level for each position all the sensitivities that are calculated for each and every position. So we can sort on that, and we can see that a 10-year node, a credit 10-year node here is with a risk weight is contributing substantially to this standard risk, and we can see that the 10-year node in total is the culprit here in most of the 72 million kroner of capital charge. So this is the way you need to go through it, and if you want to go through the internal model, it's the same way. We have to go into a more detailed view of how these capital charges are aggregated, and we can then see that the total charge comes from the full set, the reduced set, and the stressed set, and it's broken down by the asset classes. So you can highlight a specific interest rate risk bucket on the total, and then drill down on the liquidity buckets, where we have the risk factors belonging to the 10-day, 20-day, 40-day, 60 and 120-day buckets. And we can go all the way down to the position level again and see the expected shortfall for each position. And we have the P&L vector and try to identify where is this capital charge coming from. And this is the way you need to be able to drill down in order to understand where your high numbers, capital charge numbers, are coming from. It's very difficult to do this from just a single dashboard without having the possibility to get into the detailed calculation and also into the detailed aggregation. How are these actually aggregated? Which correlations are you using, and how are these position mapped into buckets? You need to know that your issuer is in the bucket 4, and you need to know this issuer Swedbank. You need to know which nodes you're calculating. You need to know which risk weight is on there, because if you don't have this, it's going to end up being in other bucket. And if we would experiment with this and have no bucket information, and we have no static data for this, we have 148 million capital charge, and if we calculate this without knowing anything about where these positions are belonging curvature wise and so on and so forth, the risks would be somewhere around double. And you can see the credit risks are now all in the other bucket, which means that it has the maximum risk weight, and then multiplied by the sensitivities, you get a number which is just exploding, which means that you have to have very good control of your credit risk and which curves they're on and how they net within each credit risk curve. This was a small sneak preview into the FRTB world. If you have further questions and want to discuss this with any of us, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Thanks for listening.